Hello, and welcome to this introductory presentation on SolarAPP Plus, the Solar Automated Permit Processing Tool. SolarAPP Plus was developed by the National Renewable Energy Lab, known as NREL. But who is NREL? Well, NREL is one of 17 national labs founded and funded by the U.S. Department of Energy to tackle the critical scientific challenges of our time. Specifically, NREL focuses on finding creative answers to today's energy challenges and has decades of focused leadership in clean energy research, development, and deployment. For SolarAPP Plus, NREL has collaborated with a team of experts, many of which are shown here on the slide, to develop our online permitting platform that automates rooftop solar plan review and produces code-compliant approvals instantly. We have worked with solar industry groups, code bodies like the ICC, the building safety community, environmental organizations, and of course, local governments to develop the SolarAPP Plus tool. The platform is free to adopt, and SolarAPP Plus is meant to make online automated permit processing more accessible. Given conversations we've had with hundreds of jurisdictions, we've noticed the trend that rooftop solar projects tend to have very consistent designs. Residential rooftop PV projects with one module and one inverter are common, easy to approve, and often take no more than an hour to review. But because of the sheer volume of applications, they often sit in a queue before they get reviewed. Because of these commonalities across designs, we estimate that SolarAPP Plus can cover 70 to 80% of the permits submitted for solar and approve them without delay. This slide summarizes the systems that are compatible with SolarAPP Plus at this time. Currently, SolarAPP Plus is focused on residential PV and is compatible with the 2017 and 2020 NEC, as well as the 2018 and 2021 IBC and IRC. And of course, in California, we are compliant with Title 24. The tool can also process permits for main panel upgrades. Also displayed here are the features that we are planning to include in the tool and are actively working to integrate. SolarAPP Plus is currently piloting the ability to instantly approve applications for PV plus storage projects with numerous jurisdictions. SolarAPP Plus will also be continuously updated based on new codes, and we will continue to add new technologies to our portfolio. In the future, SolarAPP Plus will be able to approve applications for EV chargers and more. Utilizing SolarAPP Plus for automated residential PV permitting has several benefits for the jurisdictions, homeowners, and installers using the tool across Arizona, California, Virginia, and Connecticut. First and foremost is that the permits are instantly issued, which reduces the project timeline from initial permitting to final inspection by almost 2 weeks on average. Automated permitting also reduces the workload and improves efficiency for permitting staff at the jurisdiction, saving thousands of hours of staff time. Utilizing SolarAPP Plus has no negative impact on inspections, and in fact, SolarAPP Plus projects have been about 37% less likely to fail an inspection than traditionally reviewed projects. And finally, SolarAPP Plus is free for jurisdictions. The installer pays a small administrative fee of $25 per permit application. That fee allows the SolarAPP Plus team to maintain and continuously improve the tool. This slide gives a high-level overview of the process contractors would follow in SolarAPP Plus. First, the installer inputs project information and spends about 15 minutes moving through fire, structural, electrical, and certification questions. There are about 50 questions in total. Across the forms, our system is automating compliance checks that a jurisdictional staff would otherwise do themselves by viewing paper-based plans. Second, SolarAPP Plus runs compliance checks. If the installer inputs anything non-compliant, the system will give them live feedback guiding them towards a compliant answer. Because it's automated, it can very quickly catch code issues, typos, and other errors. It is designed to be responsive, so it will instantly return corrections and provide guidance for getting a correct answer in an input field. This eases the process that would otherwise require a back and forth between a jurisdiction's building office and the installer. Because of this, SolarAPP Plus can limit the amount of questions a jurisdiction gets on basic applications, especially from new installers. This will allow permit technicians to focus their efforts on complicated permits rather than typical systems. And third, if the contractor completes a compliant application, they will pay the SolarAPP Plus administrative fee and your permitting fee. Once payment is complete, the permit is instantly issued with an inspection checklist and other content for your inspection team to verify in the field. This is all through a no-touch process and allows for 24/7 instant permitting. SolarAPP Plus is adaptable, and we offer two options to best meet the needs of jurisdictions. The first option is the standalone model. This is for jurisdictions who only accept applications via email, mail, or in person. The standalone model starts with the installer inputting their project and paying our $25 administrative fee. The installer then pays the city or county's fee in SolarAPP Plus using the jurisdiction Stripe account. This account is completely separate from SolarAPP Plus, so all permit fees go directly to the jurisdiction's bank account. And finally, the permit gets issued instantly. All the permit and inspection documents are sent to both the installer and the jurisdiction so everyone has easy access. The project approval documents are also stored in SolarAPP Plus for easy future access. The integration model is for jurisdictions already using some type of online permitting portal, such as Acela's Citizen Access, Tyler Technologies EnerGov, or Central Square's eTrackIt. If I don't list your GovTech provider, that is no problem. We can work with any platform that accepts PDF uploads, unique input fields, and online payments. This method also starts with the installer inputting their project and paying our $25 administrative fee. They will then receive approval documents for the system for immediate download. The installer would now be directed back to your system where they can upload the approval documents for the project directly into your government's software system. They can also pay any city or county permitting fees within your system. Your system would then instantly issue the permit after payment is confirmed. If moving forward with adoption interests you, this slide walks through exactly what that process looks like. It's a 4-step process. First, we would need to select the right model of SolarAPP Plus for your jurisdiction. This would either be the integration or standalone version reviewed on the previous slide. The next step would be to input local settings. These include aspects such as permitting contacts, wind speed, snow load, temperature variables, model code years, and other various onboarding requirements. Our team can help you with this step. Next would be to set up an instant workflow. If you're moving forward with the standalone model, this step would include setting up a Stripe account. If you are instead interested in moving forward with the integration model, then you would need to set up an instant workflow with your government software. And finally, launch. This would involve inviting 1 to 3 installers to use SolarAPP Plus for permitting, to start and run a pilot if needed, and finally, open up SolarAPP Plus to all installers in your area. Now, we will show you a demonstration of how a contractor would use SolarAPP Plus to input a new project design. SolarAPP Plus is used in place of a comprehensive review by jurisdiction staff, saving valuable human resources for more complicated reviews. The contractor answers questions, provides system details, and uploads supporting documentation directly to the software platform for an automated compliance review. Only licensed contractors are permitted to submit projects via SolarAPP Plus, with licenses verified and managed through the long-term host. Expired licenses prevent a contractor from submitting projects via the software. SolarAPP Plus allows contractors to submit code-compliant systems of any size that can be interconnected according to the code. Limitations are based on the eligible maximum utility service, maximum bus size, system architecture, and interconnection rules per the NEC. When the contractor selects New Project, they are prompted to enter an address which is automatically verified as eligible for a permit in the associated jurisdiction. SolarAPP Plus verifies the address is located within your jurisdiction using the AHJ registry. The AHJ registry was developed by the SunSpec Alliance and the Orange Button Coalition for Street Address Validation, which cross-references map coordinates with the AHJ territories based on 2020 census shapefiles. If the project's address is outside of your jurisdiction, SolarAPP Plus will not allow the application to proceed. The installer may choose to submit solar or solar and storage project based on customizable selections by the jurisdiction and in compliance with local building codes. Once the address is confirmed within the jurisdiction and the project type is selected, the contractor advances to a page where they are prompted to add additional project details and review the SolarAPP Plus eligibility checklist to ensure that the overall project is qualified for an automated compliance check. This eligibility checklist can be easily downloaded for future reference. All projects must conform to specific editions of the National Electric Code, International Code Council I codes, minimum design loads of ASCE 716, UL standards, and manufacturer instructions. SolarAPP Plus is also compatible with locally amended code editions such as California's Title 24, 2022 Building Safety Code. Throughout the application process, SolarAPP Plus works through a series of dynamic questions that change based on the system's architecture. Contractors enter information in fillable fields, attestation checkboxes, and drop-down menus to detail the specifics of an installation. Entries that are outside of a predetermined range will be deemed not compatible with SolarAPP Plus. SolarAPP Plus validates individual inputs and will reject information that falls outside of predetermined values or ranges. The software provides real-time feedback to contractors regarding their entries and will not approve projects with missing information. You will see more of this as we progress through the application. Next, the installer enters system design details about fire, structural, and electrical configuration. The key piece on the fire page is the attestation to comply with the fire bulletin. This document covers signage, disconnecting means, and most importantly, fire setbacks. The fire bulletin covers setback scenarios, and using the square footage of the roof and internal data from the coverage of the selected array on the next page, SolarAPP Plus will be able to make calculations to determine the appropriate ridge setback. That information will all be displayed in the long form and checklist documents, which we will go over later. The first time a contractor uses SolarAPP Plus, they will need to take the time to thoroughly review the fire bulletin. But once they have an understanding, they can move through this process with ease on future projects. Next, we'll move on to the structural page. These questions are designed to ensure that rooftop-mounted systems don't pose more than a minimal impact to the home structure. SolarAPP Plus uses the guidance of the International Existing Building Code when evaluating rooftop residential structures built to the code, and restricts certain systems based on roof pitch, snow load, and system weight. Systems weighing more than 4 pounds per square foot do not qualify in SolarAPP Plus. Internal SolarAPP Plus databases restrict the use of racking systems based on the listing and manufacturer instructions, validating fire classification, roof slope, module type, max module height, and the roof surface compatibility. Certain design constraints that are used by installers are actually set by the jurisdiction during the onboarding process. These aspects include ground snow load, wind speed, and seismic design category. After completing the structural section, the contractor will move on to the electrical page. On the electrical side, the SolarAPP Plus team sought out methods to ensure data consistency and accuracy whenever possible. As such, SolarAPP Plus references the California Energy Commission's list of approved equipment to verify listing to specific safety standards by product and obtain the electrical parameters used for code compliance calculations. SolarAPP Plus also maintains several internal databases of commonly used equipment to aid in the compliance review. Contractors are allowed to select up to 2 distinct inverter models, as long as they employ the same circuit architecture. However, a contractor must choose a single module, racking equipment, and rapid shutdown type for the system. Data sheets for components used will be uploaded and attached to the approval documents for reference by the jurisdiction. Contractors upload data sheets to SolarAPP Plus for reference at inspection. For racking systems, contractors must submit a list of approved module combinations listed to UL 2703 for grounding and bonding to the SolarAPP Plus Coalition for approval and inclusion to an internal database. For rapid shutdown devices, an internal database supports the listing to UL 1741 PVRSS and ensures compatibility among listed systems. Similar to other expedited permitting processes, SolarAPP Plus requires minimum guidelines for installation materials and best practices. This allows SolarAPP Plus to set a base for performing system calculations accurately. The installation details section highlights the requirements for minimum terminal rating, wire ratings, conduit height, and conductor diameter. These values allow the software to calculate and verify wire size, conduit fill, overcurrent protective device ratings, and string voltages per the electrical code. SolarAPP Plus is currently unable to evaluate an existing PV system installed on a residence, but we hope to expand to include these systems in a future version of the software. For the circuit details section, the contractor is asked several questions regarding the design and architecture of the proposed system. SolarAPP Plus considers contractor inputs and validates them against code requirements for accuracy, allowing a high degree of flexibility in the different architectures that SolarAPP Plus can evaluate. SolarAPP Plus performs the electrical calculations, database lookups, and compares multiple entries to determine code compliance. The inspector simply verifies workmanship and that the installed equipment matches the checklist. Where other static guidebook programs fall short, SolarAPP Plus has significant advances in that it can evaluate all of the code-compliant interconnections listed in the electrical code by varying the question set and evaluating the data. Contractors can choose from several supply-side and load-side interconnections and detail subpanels. SolarAPP Plus offers the jurisdiction a customizable selection in regard to allowing main panel upgrades or main breaker derates through the software, depending on the jurisdiction process or fees. SolarAPP Plus is capable of a code-compliant review and requires the contractor to provide load calculations at the inspection. Before I move on from this page, I'm going to change a single input related to the interconnection method. This is because we'd like to show you how SolarAPP Plus reacts when a job is not code compliant. This input itself is still code compliant and will not trigger a reaction from SolarAPP Plus upon input. However, it will not be compliant for the project as a whole, which you will see momentarily. On this next page, the installer warrants that they will perform all of the work with valid approvals, certifications, and licenses, and that they will carry all necessary insurance required by law. Now we will submit the project. As the dial spins, our system is doing back-end calculations to ensure that the system as a whole is code compliant. If an installer has input a compliant project, they'll get to preview their inspection checklist, long form, and all of the documents they uploaded. As you can see here, our project did not pass the back-end code compliance checks. However, SolarAPP Plus has now flagged exactly what the issue is for the contractor. If this input was a mistake, the contractor could now go back and make that correction. If that input was input correctly, the contractor could now reevaluate their project, identify other input errors, or submit via the traditional process. This is a process that would typically take some back and forth between a jurisdiction and the contractor. Someone from the jurisdiction would have to catch this mistake and return the application to the contractor. The contractor would then have to make updates, resubmit, and someone from the jurisdiction would have to review that application completely. Instead, SolarAPP Plus was able to instantly catch that issue, and the contractor could go back immediately to make that correction within minutes, as you've just seen. Once a code-compliant project has been submitted, the contractor will be able to see a preview of their approval documents, which you can now see here. Their next step is to complete payment. At this point, they must pay the SolarAPP Plus's $25 administrative fee. This fee is how we were able to offer SolarAPP Plus to jurisdictions at no cost. The fee also enables us to keep SolarAPP Plus up to date on codes and technologies. If you are utilizing the standalone version of SolarAPP Plus, a contractor would also be able to pay your permit fee at this point. That payment would be made using the Stripe account set up for your jurisdiction. This means that SolarAPP Plus does not touch that permit fee at any point, and instead it goes directly to your jurisdiction's bank account. If your jurisdiction is utilizing the integrated version, the installer would wait to pay their final permit fee until they are redirected to your system. They would then complete the payment in your system just as contractors already do today. Once payment is complete in SolarAPP Plus, the contractor will have access to their final approval documents. These documents are emailed to both the installer and your jurisdiction so you both have easy access. In the integration method, the contractor would be redirected to your jurisdiction's webpage where they could upload these documents into your portal, complete payment, and receive their permit. Now, I'll show you more of the approval documents that a contractor receives for a code compliance system. These approval documents were drafted with the scope and experience level of a combination inspector in mind and detail the pertinent verifications that the inspector must perform in order to validate the SolarAPP Plus approval. The inspection checklist will guide the inspector from the point of interconnection all the way up to the modules on the roof, listing details such as wire size, conduit fill, overcurrent protective device ratings, and rooftop fire access pathway requirements. The inspector will check off items that pass inspection and issue corrections for those that do not. Several items on the checklist direct the inspector to verify manufacturer and model numbers of equipment, validate amp ratings, observe working clearances and pathways, and identify areas of safety concern. The successful contractor will ensure that the installation matches the parameters on the most current inspection checklist. Deviations at the time of inspection will result in a failed project, just as they do today. If a contractor needs to make any revisions to their project, they are able to do so within SolarAPP Plus. Changes to the plan, entered by the contractor after the first submission, will be tracked through a unique revision identifier and can be downloaded from the SolarAPP Plus via a QR code within the document. Contractors are allowed 3 free revisions for each project. Subsequent revisions will incur added costs to the contractor. This demonstration has focused on solar, but SolarAPP Plus is now piloting solar and storage projects. As customer needs change and utility rates shift later in the day, the need for storage becomes apparent. The SolarAPP Plus team has worked diligently to incorporate solar plus storage into the tool. And although significantly more complicated than a solar-only project, SolarAPP Plus can approve a variety of systems and configurations that offer homeowners the ability to customize the output to specific times of the day and offers personal resiliency in the event of a utility outage. SolarAPP Plus can distinguish between AC and DC interconnected batteries, internal or external microgrid interconnect devices, and qualify relocated circuits for backup operations. Equipment must be properly listed per the applicable International Residential Code to comply with UL 9540, UL 1973, UL 1741, and be listed on the CEC database of approved equipment. Contractors must adhere to the National Electric Code, manufacturer's instructions, the local code, and the 2021 International Residential Code regulations regarding locations, ratings, spacing, and fire safety. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about SolarAPP Plus. If you are interested in registering, you can visit the links displayed on this page. If you have remaining questions after this demonstration, we encourage you to access our knowledge base or email us at team@solar-app.org. Thank you.